Actor Michael Palin first drew laughs as a member of the British comedy troupe Monty Python. In recent years, he's taken his humor across continents in his popular travel series on PBS. They include Around the World in 80 Days and Pole to Pole. His latest effort, Full Circle, traces his journey around the Pacific Rim. In less than a year, he visited 89 cities in 18 countries. The series begins September 15th on PBS. Will be seen at 8 p.m. I'm pleased to have Michael Palin back on this program. Welcome back.
Thank you, John.
It's nice to have you here
at the table.
Yes, why not? Now, what is this? This is, you wouldn't let me have this. This is a book?
You may have it at reduced rates. No, there's a book which goes with the series. It's my diaries, really, of the journey. So
what's different between this and 80 Days and the other one?
It's longer.
Yeah.
This journey actually is 50,000 miles, which is longer than the other two put together. It's much more varied, both in landscape, countries, cultures, peoples. It was altogether more exhausting, and it's for me the most rewarding so far.
More so than Pole to Pole, and more so than.
Pole to Pole was difficult at either end. Certainly, the journeys to both poles were very demanding, but this. Throughout, we go to mountains, glaciers, volcanoes, kind of landscape we never saw at all going through Africa and through Russia. So, you know, for me, there's a variety which we really missed out on in Pole to Pole.
Set this one up. This is the beaches of Nome.
Sure. We start the journey around the Pacific. The circumnavigation begins in a little island called Diomede, which is right in the Bering Strait between Russia and America, next door to the international date line on the Arctic Circle. And the first place we went on the mainland was the town of Nome, famous in 1899 for a gold rush, when these sands became known as the Golden Sands of Nome.
Right. Roll tape, here it is.
"90 years ago, these bleak grey beaches were called the Golden Sands of Nome. 30,000 prospectors camped here in search of a fortune, and they still come.
Excuse me dropping in, but I was passing through Nome and I was told I must see the Golden Sands of Nome, see if it's true.
Legendary.
See that? Yeah.
That was 3 hours worth of work, maybe $100.
That's 3 hours this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Maybe $100. Make it disappear and suck it right up.
And are you together?
Yeah, this is my son.
Your son with you? Yeah. So is this a hobby which, I mean...
This is a hobby. What I do with the
taken over most of
gold,
your life.
I invest all the gold money. I don't have to live on it.
Yeah.
I don't need it for expenses. I'm buying a new Corvette with this year's gold. Last year, I bought, 2 years ago, I bought a Corvette. Last year, I bought a house. I've got 5 homes now.
What's the most challenging thing about this? I mean, why do you think?
The most challenging thing is just the journey itself. Yeah. Instead of going from one to one country and then stopping and then maybe looking at another, the essence of these travel programs that I do are that we actually go on the journey and we try and sort of show you what the endurance of a long trip like this consists of. I mean, we had very few breaks at home, but in a year traveled for 10 months on the road. So you're passing through these different cultures, but the hardest thing, I suppose, is just recording everything we see, keeping going, making sure that it's bright, making sure that it's lively, and making sure that you're honest, that on days when you feel lousy, you show that you feel lousy. I'm not quite sure why we do it, except it's kind of, there aren't long journeys done anymore. You know, if you do a long journey, you do it in a jet airplane. You don't see anything below you.
Why do you think it works?
Well, I think that people see in me not an expert who knows every inch of the ground, is going to give them a sort of serious, in-depth social, political and economic vision of what we're seeing. They see it like every man, you know. I suppose I'm a traveller who goes through it, and I have problems with the language, and I have problems at customs, and I have general problems with baggage or understanding people, but basically I'm enthusiastic. Yeah. And I think people like enthusiasm in an age when there are a lot of cynics around.
Is it mostly extemporaneous? Or is it sort of
mostly. We have a framework. We have to have a very, very careful framework before we set out, so that we know that we can get into this country, that country, we can get permission to film, although this didn't always work out. And having worked out the framework, I then go and we do the journey with a very small crew of 6 people, including myself, And I don't script it. I just go, they put me in situations and I try and make the best of them. And we meet people, and generally the discussions we have and the talk we have is on camera.
Okay, take a look. This is Kamchatka. Anything we should say to set this up?
This is Kamchatka, our first port of call in Siberia. It's a peninsula which is rather beautiful.
Very scenic, they
As you
say.
will see.
Roll tape.
Then suddenly the weather clears and the landscape changes, and we're over some of the most spectacular scenery in the world. Tourism is not yet established here, and it's doubtful if it ever will be. This part of Kamchatka is protected, however. The 6,000 square miles below us is known as the Kronotsky Reserve. This is the crater of the Uzon volcano. There are 25 volcanoes on the reserve. 12 are still active.
This is a truly amazing place, the Koronsky Reserve. I mean, I haven't seen as much steam since I gave up train spotting. It is just the size of the place, not only what you see on the surface, like the volcanoes that we've seen and flown over, but what you feel is underneath. I've never, ever, anywhere else felt the sense of the earth sort of bubbling and pulsing beneath me, this energy just pouring out. And it is really in the middle of nowhere. I have to remember that we're extraordinarily privileged to be here. I mean, this is inaccessible, remote land of Kamchatka.
Now, when you, I may have asked you this, but if you could go back to one place, where would it be?
I'd go back to most of the countries. I know that's a sort of cop-out, but
It
there wasn't one single place that I don't want to see more of. The place I saw least of and I enjoyed most and was quite new to me and had a lot of sort of sensations that I found very sort of interesting and seductive was Mexico. So I think probably I'd put that top of my list if I had to.
Will you do something else again like Monty Python?
Yes, I like to think that there's a sort of uniformity in what I do. There's a kind of humor that informs almost everything, including these travel series. And it's not something, I don't think sense of humor is something you lose, and I don't think I have lost my view of life as being essentially quite absurd, and I think the Pythons feel that way. Yeah. It would be very nice if all of us were able to clear our diaries for a year and sit down and write something.
Yeah, why doesn't that happen?
Because everybody's doing different things. Yeah. I mean, Python, we all thought after Graham's death that really that was the end of Python. There would never be a chance to reunite. And yet, you know, there's a big demand for it. So whenever there's a rumor that we're getting together again, people are really interested. Newspapers ring me up. I think this is, you know, this always takes me by surprise that Python still has some life in it. So.
Does Cleve spend most of his time here or in?
Well, whenever I'm in London, he's just left for the States. Whenever I come here, he's just left for London.
Right.
But he lives mainly in London. Yeah, he has a place in California where he goes for the.
He always said to me that the thing that he basically said it was the writing and putting it together that was the most fun for him, rather than the acting.
I know John underestimates his, just his brilliance as a comic performer.
As a performer.
As a comic performer, I think. I mean, you asked John to do the silly walk is the most cruel thing you can ever do to him. And yet he did it, and he did it in such a funny way that most people would not have got a laugh from that, really. But the combination of John, the bowler hat, the seriousness, and these extraordinary athletic movements, I mean, that is something which very few people have that talent, and it's a pity he underrates it.
Michael Palin, the book is good. The series Full Circle appears on PBS on Monday, September 15th at 8 p.m. And here is the book, Full Circle, one man's journey by air, by train, by boat, and occasionally a very sore feet around the 50,000 miles of the Pacific Rim. Pen Part series. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.